Good morning. Today is April the 12th, 2011, and this is the spring staff meeting. Everyone has an agenda here on in front of them. A couple things I want to mention before we get to the agenda. On Wednesdays, I do not want the employees calling in for their schedule. Our office staff are trying to call out, and it causes too much confusion for the office. So that's the most important thing. I asked the ladies out in the front, is there one thing you want me to let all the employees know here? And that's number one on their list. And then you'll notice number 13 on the agenda where it says see handout. I'm not going to have a handout for that. If you'll just cross that off. And now we can start with the agenda. First is the policy review. We are now at a point where we're too big of an agency to where if a problem before, whenever we were a small agency, was just a small problem. And now that we're a larger agency, whenever we have a problem, those problems are large problems. So I need all of the employees to understand that. And the large problem that we're dealing with right now, not that we haven't dealt with it before, but we're going to start focusing on it a little differently, is call-offs. Our policy is that when there is a call-off, three things need to happen. Number one, the employee needs to speak to the supervisor directly, which most people are doing that. I don't have a problem with that. Number two, there has to be an 8-hour notice whenever there is a call-off. That allows us to be able to stay dependable to the patients that we serve. There are people out there whose lives are in our hands, who can't go without not having someone, that we need to make sure that someone's there at that house to help them. And it's a team effort in doing this. So we're all part of this one team that's out there working. So we need that 8-hour notice. I will say this, for those of you that we have called and said, hey, we're stuck, we're having a problem, there's only a very few people that go into this patient's home. Will you help? And you have done above and beyond in helping us. And I do want to say thank you. I don't want that to go unmentioned. The third aspect of this is we need to have those excuses into our office within 3 business days. If it is not in within 3 business days, it will be counted as an unexcused absence the second time your position is terminated. I am now at that point where I am no longer putting up with they're not getting the excuses into the office. We're not children. We're not in elementary school any longer. This is the real world. Everybody wants to work. We want you to work, but we can't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It never has worked that way. And Twin Oaks Home Care has now taken a stand to say we are done. If it doesn't happen, your position will be terminated. Because there are patients that are depending upon us. They're depending on us to be there. And if we're not there, they're going to find another agency to do it. And our agency has never responded that way toward our patients. Our goal is to be the most dependable agency, and we have been. Again, like I said, when we were a smaller company, it wasn't that big of a deal. Now when we're up to 95, 100 employees, instead of 20, 30, 40, those problems have now tripled. Okay, so the only way to cut a tree down is to dig around it and to kill the roots. So, out of the 100 employees that we have, there's probably 5, maybe 10 that are in that boat. But it's making life miserable for everybody, all of us. So that stops today, April the 12th, 2011. Okay, B. Driving patients' vehicles. Anyone that's going to be driving a patient in their own vehicle, there's 2 aspects to this, needs to have adequate auto insurance. If you are someone that is transporting a patient, make sure you talk to our office staff to make sure that your insurance, that we have a copy of your insurance face sheet that says, yes, you have coverage, and yes, these are your limits. Because our insurance only kicks in at a certain amount. That means the employee has to have up to A, and then above A is what Twin Oaks covers. And 99% of the time, if we're out, I would prefer that we take the patient's vehicle as long as the patient's vehicle is safe. Number 1, letter C. Notes in patients' homes. This hasn't changed. This is just a review. Notes in patients' homes must be pre-approved by the office. They must be signed. This is what's new. I'd like for them to be signed by all employees that are in the home. That tells me, say we're in a home, we're providing care 7 days a week, twice a day, and there's 6 girls that are in there. Well, how do I know the other 5 girls, if it only has one signature on it, how do I know the other 5 girls know that the note's there? So I would prefer if every employee, when they see that note in the home and the note is still good, go ahead and put your initials, sign your name, however you want to do it, as long as we can tell who it is. That tells us, yes, you saw that note. It'd be a good idea for you to date that also. Yeah, just the legality of it. Anytime you're going to sign something, you make sure you date it. If there's an outdated note, the outdated note, that's something, say, we used to get a patient in and out of the tub. Well, that patient's not doing as well anymore. Now we're giving them a chair bath. Well, now there's a note in the home. The care plan is going to get updated. The note says we're no longer doing that. And now the patient gets better. Now we're not using that note anymore. So we need to make sure that those kind of notes that no longer apply are out of the chart. I don't want those to remain in the home. All you have to do is call the office, and then we will go ahead and say, yes, go ahead and get rid of it, or no, leave it in there, and here's why. Any of those notes that get pulled out of the chart, if you want to forward those here to the office, you can give them to the supervisor that comes around to do the state run at the end of the month. They can come in here and they can go on the patient's chart. That's okay. We can keep those. Those are considered legal documents. D, time signing in and out. We're actually making some mistakes in this, and it's not the employees that have been with us for quite some time. It's some of the newer employees. I saw yesterday where there was a girl that was scheduled, say, from 1 to 4, and she signed in at 12:45 p.m. What you need to know is that whatever time you're scheduled, that's the time you're permitted to sign in. You're not allowed to add time to it, and you're not allowed to subtract time to that. That is the allowable time that we have been given by the state, and that's the allowable time we're allowed to bill for. That's the allowable time you are to get paid for. So we're not allowed to add to that or subtract from that unless there's a reason, and if it's a good reason, you call into the office and we can add or subtract. You're at a house till 4 scheduled, and the patient is not clean. Maybe their diaper's wet, something like that. Those things do happen. All you have to do is call the office. We can adjust that. But if your start time is scheduled at 1 o'clock, don't show up at 12. Or don't show up at 12:30. Don't show up at quarter till. You're to show up at about 5 minutes till your assigned shift. That way, if there's if someone there and they're leaving, which is very few times does that actually happen, where someone's leaving, someone's coming, you can give a little bit of report as to what happened on your shift to the new person coming in. Letter E, when calling times in and out, it must occur from the patient's phone, not your cell phone. This is new. We've been noticing that employees more so have been calling from their cell phone. Hey, I just got to so-and-so's house. Or, hey, I'm leaving so-and-so's house. I don't want phone calls from your cell phone. I want the phone call from the patient's phone, because we have caller ID here, and it will come up and it will show, and those times and dates, they all get recorded. F, the 8-hour notice, we talked about that within the call-off. Policy hasn't changed. G, credentials. How many of you have a credential? How many of you know what a credential is? That's a better question. Okay, a credential is something like a course or a study that you have completed, that once you have completed it, you can sign that after your name. You should sign that after your name. That tells everybody, I have completed this. Well, we have employees that work here that are registered nurses. Their credentials are RN. We have employees that work here are licensed practical nurses, and their credentials are LPN. We have employees that work here that are certified nursing assistants. Their credentials are CNA. Or if they're a certified medical assistant, it's CMA. Or if you've completed the home health aide certification class, your credential is HHA. What I need to see from all employees is your credentials after your name. I know it's something that's very small. It's something that may be very insignificant, but down the road, if any of these are ever challenged in court for whatever reason, our I's need to be dotted and our T's need to be crossed. So if you're a home health aide and you have been through the home health aide certification class, make sure that when you put your name, you put HHA after your name. If you haven't been through that class, you will be going through that class within your first year of employment. That's part of your training. H, incident reporting. This is something that we do like to touch base on annually. What is an incident? An incident is something that occurs to a patient or to an employee. Whether there's policies that are not being followed, whether there's criminal acts that have taken place, any kind of damage in the home to the employee or to the patient, those need to be reported. Once they're reported here to the office, number 4 tells you what our responsibilities are. What we've defined here is the employee-patient incidences and then injuries. There's a difference between an incident and an injury. An injury is where there's actually some kind of harm or suffering that was caused to either the patient or to the employee. Those also need to be reported. Once an incident is reported, number 3 and number 4, the supervisor will document it, put it in on the employee complaint policy infringement report sheet. If additional documentation is needed, the employee in direct contact with the incident will document the incident as well. That means you may have to come in and you may have to write up something in addition to it as well. And then number 4, once the incident is documented, the supervisor will notify the appropriate people. Sometimes we have to call the physician, a family. Sometimes one of the secretaries here have to call the owners, the care manager, the Office of Long-Term Living, the Department of Health, depending upon the significance of it. They have guidelines to where if a patient falls and there's no injury and they don't have to go to the hospital, that doesn't get reported to the Department of Health or to the Office of Long-Term Living. However, if a patient falls and they break something and they have to go to the hospital for treatment, surgery, those have to get reported to the Office of Long-Term Living and to the Department of Health. So there's various avenues we have to take with those. Section number 2 here, home care safety. This is something that all employees need to be aware of. We are here to provide not only safe care to our clients, but we're to keep our clients safe. Whether there's a severe weather alert, an earthquake, a flood, definitely fire safety and client and employee safety in the home. There are handouts that we have given to patients and families regarding this. We have policies here in our office regarding this, certain steps that need to be taken. B, personnel client safety. On assignments where the personnel have a risk of occupational exposure, the organization will furnish at no cost to the personnel appropriate personal protective equipment, that's PPE abbreviated, so that barrier precautions can be observed, such as gloves, disposable gowns, face masks or shields, and eye protection. And there have been times in the past when we have had to provide our employees with those personal protective equipment devices. And if you're not sure as to when that would be indicated, I did include a handout listed under Section C, Personal Device Checklist. If you look at that handout, it'll tell you what activity you're performing and what equipment should be used. Every activity should include hand washing. That's why all the boxes are marked. As far as gloves go, anytime they're going to have hand contact, if soiling is likely, that's routinely used gloves. And 99% of the time, we're using gloves in the patient's home. Now, when would we use a gown or an apron? That would be if there's some kind of splashing or soiling that would occur to our clothes. A mask if there's some type of cough, either from the employee or from the patient, where particles could be airborne, whether there's oral or nasal infections. And when we use eye protection, definitely if there's some kind of spattering that would occur, we want to protect you from getting something that a patient has. We also are protecting our patients from getting something that you have. That's the whole point behind that. D, hand washing, which we've covered numerous times, including in our orientation and numerous staff meetings. That's the most important thing we can do to prevent the spread of infection. Even though the flu season's over, there's still some things that are going around at all times. Anytime that something dirty is touched or soiled, your hands, you want to make sure that you wash them after you help someone with toileting, before their meals, before any kind of care is given. And you also want to wash them before you leave, because you don't want to take anything home with you. E is the principles of body mechanics. We've covered those before as well. In an effort to keep you safe in the home, you have to use your body in a way to prevent it from becoming injured. If you're carrying heavy objects, you need to carry them close to yourself. You need to try to stand erect in the home, not be slumped or leaning, where you're going to put additional strain on your muscles, your ligaments, and your tendons. When you're bending over, you need to bend at your knees and not at your back. Avoid lifting something from the floor. If you're going to push something, you need to push it near the center. That's where all the force needs to be directed in the center, not toward the side or to the end. Last year we had an employee that got injured. They were standing at the side of the bed trying to pull a patient up. When I have taught everyone, and our orientation classes has shown everyone, you got to get at the head of the bed, and you have to raise the feet, lower the head, and you have to pull that patient towards you. Keep your shoulders up, and number 7, most importantly, pull from the head of the bed. So that is there separately. Letter F, under home care safety, hazardous waste. It's important that hazardous waste be disposed of properly. Well, what is hazardous waste? Any kind of chemicals or materials that may cause or contribute to serious health effects. Those present a safety hazard, or they have the potential to cause a fire or explosion or a serious accident. Page 2. Hazardous waste. Now, normally we don't deal with anything that's extremely hazardous. However, there are some things that can cause infection. Like dirty diapers. Those are to be double bagged. You put them in a bag, then you put them in the garbage. You don't want to let those kind of things sit in the house, only because of the odor. And when the patient's family come in, and the house has a real bad odor in it, then they're going to think, that home health aide didn't do a really good job today that was here. So a lot of it is, hey, we have to protect our image as well. You may double bag it, but sometimes you have to go the extra mile. You have to go a little bit further than what you normally would go to make sure that patients and families are satisfied. Just the way it is when you're dealing with the public. Number 3, calling the office. Our phone number here is 724-438-1936, or the toll-free, if it's long distance, 866-566-9214. After hours, everyone calls the same number. All of those numbers ring on the same line. Do not call any of the cell phone numbers. Cell phones are for after-hour use. We do have an office cell phone, and that's for us to call out on. If you have to return a call, you return the call on the 438-1936 number. Now, every once in a while, the cell phone might be in a separate location than we are, if we're showering or something like that at home. But, if we miss a call, when we get it, leave a voicemail message. Don't just hang up. Leave a voicemail message, and we will return the call as soon as we get that. Number 4, we've covered this in the past, tax collection. We will withhold local tax for only one authority, which is Southwest Regional. If you owe the 0.5 to 1% to any other municipality, it's your responsibility to remit your portion to the proper authorities, not ours. And you could talk with the person that does your taxes regarding that. So it's a good idea for you to hang on to these so you can refer back to them later on down the road. Number 5, Workplace Safety Committee. We do have a Workplace Safety Committee. It's a good thing that we have that. because we're looking for problems that are out in the patient's homes and here in the office, and we're correcting those. That also gives us a 5% discount on the insurance that we're paying every year by having a workplace safety committee involved and by having it certified by the state. We review all new clients and safety evaluation forms. We discuss safety concerns and plans. We plan appropriate safety interventions to reduce and eliminate workplace injuries. Our goal is to have 0 employee or patient injuries this year in 2011, and last year we had 2. Our goal was always 0. But compared to 2005, 2006, we had about 22 injuries in 1 year. So I think we've come a long way. But unless we hit 0, it's not good enough. Number 6, our state licensing. We presently received our 2nd state license, and that's for our Greene County office on February the 28th, 2011. We are in that office on Mondays and Thursdays from 8:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. Unless we have a full week of orientation scheduled out there, which we have already done, then we're out there for the full week. They are still using the toll-free number or the 438 number to call in. And all of the folders, employee folders, scheduling, payroll, it's all still being done out of this office. We're considering that just a satellite. So instead of all those employees having to drive an hour or an hour and a half to get to our Hopwood office, we can travel a half hour there, 45 minutes, and those employees only have to travel 10 minutes to 30 minutes to get to us. So that's making it real nice for them out there. 7 is our sexual harassment policy. Because we have insurance that protects us, our liability insurance for our company, this is something that we have to cover every year. So if you've heard this before, just bear with me. We accept no form of sexual harassment. It is not tolerated at any time or any place that Twin Oaks is represented, whether here in the office or in client homes. This includes any physical or verbal sexual harassment, as well as sexual innuendos, tasteless or immoral jokes from employees, clients, or their families. Twin Oaks will follow the disciplinary process if an employee is involved in an incident, and depending upon the severity of the infraction, termination may be immediate. Disciplinary actions will be determined by the Twin Oaks Home Care Management Team. Number 8, scheduled overtime. It has never been our goal to schedule someone overtime. If you are presently scheduled overtime, we will be contacting you to correct this in upcoming weeks. There are times when we grow, and when we grow, we have these growth spurts. We may pick up, normally we pick up 4 patients in 1 month. Last month we picked up 16 new patients. So that's really good, but it's really stressful for the office, and it's stressful for the employees that are out there. So what we've had to do is we've had to ask some employees to work overtime, or even schedule some employees overtime. That's not our goal. Our goal is to be able to schedule you under 40 hours a week. And one of the most important parts of that is Twin Oaks Home Care loses money when they schedule overtime, because the reimbursement's not enough to cover it. So we can't stay a viable company and lose. It has to be profitable, unfortunately, but the care has to be done. So if there's times where we are forced, it's our last option, forced into overtime, that's okay, but we're still hiring to be able to bring those overtime numbers down. So I guess that's a good thing, especially with the economy being the way it has been lately. Everybody else is out looking for jobs and then hurting. Number 9, cell phone policy. Cell phones must be turned off while scheduled to work in clients' homes and in our offices. That's what I added. Employees may check your messages after your shift or during your break only. That hasn't changed. Employees are not permitted to text during their shift or in our offices. And B, employees calling into the office with shift changes in the client's home, they need to use the client's phone, not their cell phone. Okay. Number 10, Client's computer policy, this hasn't changed. We covered this last year. Employees are not permitted to use clients' computers. Now, 10 years ago, even sometimes 5 years ago, we never had to worry about our employees using patients' computers because they just didn't have them in the home. But we, as technology increases, our policies have to increase to capture those increases and make sure that it's safe. We did have an incident where an employee was using the computer at a patient's home, and the patient's daughter was upset about it. And I would be too. It was her personal computer. 11, client's laundry. I heard of this happening twice over the last year. An employee had taken the client's laundry home to wash the client's laundry at their house. Can I just say that that's never to be done? It must be washed during your scheduled time and at the client's residence or taken to the laundromat. It's never to be taken to your home. Number 12, the Performance Improvement Committee. Just like the Safety Committee, we have a separate committee that's called the Performance Improvement Committee. And what we do is we meet monthly, and it's about an hour and a half, these meetings. And we review all the policies, incidences, infections, complaint forms, safety measures for employees and other committees. We have done that, and we've been meeting for about 2 years now. But the thing that we're working on right now the most is client chart reviews. So we're going through the client's folders. We're finding some inconsistencies, and we're correcting those right now. We're about halfway through. We're a little better than halfway through all of our clients' charts right now. And we probably do 8 to 12 charts at a meeting, and that's only once a month. When you have 80 clients, it's going to take you a couple months to get through all those. So we're progressing, and it's a good thing. If you would like to serve on one of those committees, we do have to rotate through every once in a while. Please let our secretaries know that you would be interested in coming in. It's 1 hour, 1 day a month, normally, where you can help Twin Oaks Home Care keep us safe, keep our employees and patients safe, and help review the forms and documents that we're using and policy. Number 13, again, that's where we crossed off the see the handout. We do have a website. We update that frequently, and it has just been updated again. The most important thing I want to tell employees is there is an employee section. If you go to twinoakshomecare.com, and there's a username password under the employees section.